Hey folks, welcome to Plumbing with Tim. Today I'm going to take a few minutes and I'm going to show you how you can replace the cutting wheel on the Autocut tube cutter, as well as basic care and maintenance. So let's go do it. Alright, so about a year ago you saw me do a review on the Autocut copper tubing cutters, and I told you that I really like these. They've revolutionized the way that I go about cutting copper and stuff, especially in tight little areas. Got a 3/4 inch and a 1/2 inch here. I did replace the wheel, the cutting wheel on this earlier today, and this 1/2 inch is still good, but I have a backup 3/4 inch Autocut tube cutter that's got a bad little cutting wheel on it. I don't know if you can see it or not. You'll see it once I take out. And I want to show you how you can replace these blades instead of just saying, oh, this thing's junk, and toss it in the trash, make the boss buy you new ones and stuff. Before you get started with anything, I'm going to show you a couple of the little tiny tools that you're going to need to make this happen. We're going to start with a small, fine bit Phillips head screwdriver. Also, some sort of a little flat head screwdriver, and something small, like a little poke or whatever. Right? In this case, I have a rivet. All right, you're going to need this, or something that's small that's going to poke that down through, as well as laying yourself down a nice towel or something, so because there's a lot of little moving parts up inside of this apparatus, and the last thing we're going to do is start taking it apart and end up losing stuff. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how to take this thing apart. By the way, one thing I did forget to let you in on is get yourself some sort of lube, okay? Because these are all moving parts in here. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. We're going to take our fine little headed Phillips head screwdriver, whatever works. As you can see, I've got 4 screws. I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to lay this thing down just like that in the open position. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove all 4 of these screws. Now remember, that's why you have a towel down here, because we don't lose any of this stuff. Everything has to come apart and go back together exact same way. So off with the 4 screws. Nice and easy. You want to get a screwdriver that's going to fit that, because if not, you're going to strip out the heads and then you're done. And I haven't found replacements for the screws and stuff. There's the 3rd one. Let's go with the 4th one. We don't want to strip these out. Get a screwdriver that's going to fit in there. This one's kind of tight. I don't want to strip it out. Nice and easy. Feels like I got it. Looks like she's coming out. Alright, 4 screws. That's what gets you in the game. 4 screws. And get yourself a screwdriver that's going to take them out. Alright, can you see that? Now we're going to pull this top casing off of here. Now I failed to mention that you want to lay this down, okay, on the back. When you have an arrow that's on the top there that shows you the direction, that's the way you want to lay this down when you're taking screws out and all. We're just going to lay that over there. All 4 screws are accounted for. Our next step that I want to show you, and I will adjust the camera a little bit, is how we're going to get the rest of this thing apart to get to that wheel. Now at this point in the game, we've got the top cover off with all 4 screws. You see right here, there's 2 little rollers. We're going to take and we're going to just pull those rollers off and just slide off. 2 little rollers. At this point, what you can do is take and pull this whole piece off. There's the bottom side. We're going to set that aside. Remember, the top side is the side that has the arrow on it. It shows you the direction. That's my top side. That's the side that holds the screws. Now we're left with this. See, it still opens and closes. It just doesn't have the shell on there. If you flip this over though, look, there's rollers. I'm missing a roller. It got stuck in the back of here. So you actually have 4 rollers. Can you see that? That's what rolls against the copper when you're cutting it. Now we're set up with just this piece here. Now there's a way to take this off, and be careful, because remember, you have a metal half moon, and this end up here is plastic. Well, there's 2 little tabs. There's a tab there. Flip it over. There's another tab right there. I'm going to take my little flathead screwdriver, and we're going to nice and gently get in here on the backside by the wheel, between the metal and the plastic. We're going to kind of just pop this piece apart. And it's a little bit tricky. Don't force anything, because if you do that, you're going to end up breaking the plastic. This is why a lot of guys don't want to do this, because it is a little bit cumbersome. It will come off. You just have to give it a little bit of love. 2 little tabs. I'm having a little bit of a difficult time. That means you're probably going to have the same. Open that all the way. You have to get this little screwdriver in here and pop the plastic off here and pull that away from the whole apparatus. got one off just like that. Did you see that? It takes a little bit of doing. Now, if you're not sure how to put all this back together, take pictures along the way. They can only go back together one way, trust me. So now there is that little sheath that holds the wheel and that whole thing together. You're going to set that aside, and this is what you're left with. It's just the metal frame. There's the little wheel I was telling you about. See it? Right there. Now, if you look really carefully, I'm going to open this up all the way. The top here, right where the dead center of the wheel is a little pin. That pin has to come out in order for us to get the wheel out. That's why I had the little rivet or the little poker. So I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to take and try to push that pin out of the middle of the wheel. You might have to use some lube. Your hands are probably going to get dirty. It's not wanting to come out. You can try it from the other end. Little pin's got to come out of there though. See that? Look, look, look. The pin is coming out. Right there's the pin. Right there. Now if you wanted to, you could take a pair of channel locks and just poke it the rest of the way out. In this case, I didn't bring all my tools home. So we're going to take and push the pin just like that. There is your bad wheel. It's got gouges. That way when you're using it with a bad wheel, it's skipping and it's not making an even cut. So now that the wheel's out, we got to put the new wheel in and reverse the process. And I'll show you how. Alright, so at this point in the game, before we put anything back together, we got just a whole big pile of stuff sitting here. How are we going to do this? Well, before we do any of that, the inside of these little guards, these plastic guards, can you see them? They're filthy. So what am I going to do? This is optional if you're in a hurry or whatever. I'm going to take a little bit of lube. I'm just going to spray a little bit in there. Now I'll take a paper towel, just like this, regular paper towel, and go ahead and just wipe out as much of the dirt as I possibly can. I'm not going to get it all out of there, trust me. But take a little flathead screwdriver, just kind of take a paper towel down in there after you spray the lube. Get it cleaned up, or you can take this underneath the faucet and clean it up. Just don't put it back with water, because water is what is going to rust this thing out. I'm just trying to get rid of the lion's share of the dirt that's up inside of here. See, that's not really clean, but it's better than what it was. Both sides. You don't want to keep a bunch of stuff in there, because that stuff will end up adhering to your wheel as well as your rollers and creating more of a cumbersome cut, so to speak, and can start corroding and doing all that other stuff. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's better than it was. Now, our next step, what we're going to do is I have one of my Autocut blades still left in here. We're going to pull that out of here. It's a new one. See? It's brand new. Brand new. What we want to do is go back to where our metal frame is. Now at this point, if you wanted to, you could spray lube on this thing. If you're going to wear some gloves and everything so you don't get it all over yourself. And that's the reason, see why we had a towel down? Because there's a lot of little moving parts and stuff. And we don't want to lose any of this stuff. There's not replacements for everything, but they are on the wheel. So now I'm back here to square one with our little metal frame. And if you look closely on here, if you can see right there, let me see if I can focus that. Right up in here is that little pin that holds the wheel. And it's got to sit in there. So we're going to take our new wheel, and we're going to try to slide this thing back inside. See, this is like a little scissor. Look, I don't know if you guys can see this or not. It's like a little scissor. We need that to be one though. This little wheel is going to have to take and go back down in here where we originally had it. Just like that, line it up with a hole. Kind of like that, line it up with a hole. I know it's hard and difficult to see. And then we're going to take and we're going to try to shove that little pin back inside so that way we can hold the entire assembly together. I'm going to have to, they've put a little bit of ink on it because it's got to go in there and hold it. I'm having a little bit of a difficult time. I've done this several times, but it doesn't get any easier any time at all. So find a way, get them all lined up. If you have to kind of pop the thing down in there, it's got to go in. That's why it's not a bad idea sometimes, like I said, spray a little lube on there. Help that sucker out. And get that thing pushed up in there. Now you guys got the idea. I'm not going to sit here and bore you. This is kind of a little bit tedious and cumbersome, but if you want to make this tool last, there it is, see that? Brand new wheel. But you have to get that pin in there all the way through so it's holding it. Okay, so now that we've got things cleaned up, ready to go, we have our metal shell, our framework, what's going on. We have our little cutting wheel, the new one that's inside there. Now sometimes they might get a little stiff, so you just want to lubricate them and stuff. The next step we're going to take is we're going to take that wheel sleeve and we're going to put that back on. You can see the two little holes that are up at the top there. What we need to do is we need to line them up. See those little nubs? The two little nubs on the back side of where the wheel would be. I'm going to take and we're going to line that up in a case like this. Start it just like this. Watch what I'm doing. See how this is sitting down inside of there, kind of like that. We're going to slide this piece up here until those two little nubs catch. Just like that. And they're in place and everybody's happy. See that? Now it's open and close, and it's in there where it needs to be. Next step you're going to make and do is you got your four little rollers. Remember? Here they are right there. They go on these little beads. There's four of them. Two on both sides. One roller, two rollers, three rollers, and last, the fourth roller. Now that's the back side. This is the stationary end. This is not the opening end. This is the stationary end that's holding. Hold that in an upright position. Take the side that's got the writing. Watch what I do. I slide this thing up to this point. Now before we do that, see up here? Right there in that position, right there on both sides, has a little tab that's going to end up going back into place where we just pop that whole assembly together. So this is what you're going to want to hear and see. Just like that. There's your bottom piece. Now you're halfway there. Now the last piece to go together is your top piece. It's got that little arrow. Remember, stationary to stationary, butt end to butt end. We're going to pop this back into place, just like you see. Line everything up. And listen, you got to hear that pop together. That's important. This whole assembly has got to pop back together. And if you don't pop it back together, then it's not going to stay together. Just like that. See that? Now all we've got to do is put our screws back in there. Alright, so everything's back together. Phillips head screwdriver. Let's get screws back in there. Now your screws are not going to go in here if you did not line everything up and pop all the little tabs together. Make sure to pay attention to what you're doing. Like I said, if you have to take some pictures along the way, after you do this a couple times, it'll become quite easy. And that's why a lot of these guys just throw these things out, because it is a bit tedious. Like I said, these things are not exactly cheap. And if you take care of these things, I had this set of 3 for over 2 years now, and outside of doing the maintenance, they've not broke because I've taken care of them. Just like anything. See that? Ready to go. Nice and easy. Easy peasy. Nothing like a brand new blade to make a beautiful cut, just like that. Now I'm going to explain to you in this next little segment really quick how to care for these things and make sure that you do not make the mistakes I did. Now remember, I mentioned this to you earlier. The rollers inside of these little Autocuts, they are indeed, I don't know if they're plastic, but they definitely aren't metal. So every time that you use these, it's usually going to be, well, you can be cutting dry copper, but if you're cutting copper that's got water in it, as soon as you make that cut, water's getting down inside of this precious little area, and a lot of guys will finish and they'll toss it back in the box. Bad idea, because if you're not going to use it for a day or two, this thing is going to rot out and your rollers are going to stick. And you're not going to think about it. You're going to shove your next piece of pipe in there, and you're going to go. And the next thing you know, within a couple times of doing that, your little roller ends up flat. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's got a flat edge on it. Once those rollers get a flat edge on it, it's game over. The reason why they got flat is because they weren't rolling around anymore, because water got in there and the plastic dried to plastic, and now you're shoving a piece of pipe in there and you're trying to do your auto cut and stuff, but the wheels aren't moving. You're turning it, but you're putting the pressure on these wheels that won't move, and it's just putting a flat spot on there, and it's putting wear on top of your cutting wheel as well. Every time after you use this, it only takes a moment. Take yourself some sort of silicone lube or anything and spray it in there until your next time you're going to use it. If not, if those little rollers go bad, good luck trying to find replacements for that. It's hard enough to find the little cutting wheels for it. Take care of these things, lubricate these on a regular basis, and it'll pay off and they'll last you. Trust me. That's all the time we got for this one. Sorry if it became a little bit lengthy or whatever, but it's very important if you're going to invest yourself in tools is to take care of them. A lot of people don't give a crap and they just end up getting rusty and all that stuff, and they throw it away and they go buy something else. These things are very, very good to use, especially in tight quarters. They're not exactly the cheapest of cutters, but they are very useful, and they are one of my favorite tools that I own. That's why I want to take a few moments and show you how you can care for your Autocut tube cutters. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Got any questions or complaints or comments, leave them down below. Until next time, this has been Plumbing with Tim. Keep plumbing.